Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a pretty powerful idea, the thought that the books on your shelf might be deeply connected to the health of our entire planet.
I know. It sounds a little wild, right? Could a work of fiction, just a collection of stories, actually have a real impact on the physical world? Well, believe it or not, that's the exact question we're going to unpack today. We hear all the time about the massive environmental challenges we're up against. But what if the roots of the problem go way deeper than just technology or politics? What if they're actually woven to the very stories that shape how we see the world and our place in it? To really get that connection, we need a new tool, a fresh lens to look at all the stories we've inherited. Think about it like this. Imagine putting on a special pair of glasses, and suddenly, bam, all the hidden environmental themes in every story just pop right out at you. That's pretty much what this framework does. It completely changes how you see everything, from classic novels to the latest blockbuster movie. So, this tool has an official name, Ecocriticism. One of the field's pioneers, Cheryl Gutfelty, defined it really simply as the study of the relationship between literature and the physical environment. But think of it as a two-way street. It's about how the world shapes our stories, and just as important, how our stories turn around and shape the world. Now, this idea didn't just appear out of nowhere. It actually grew from the very real, very urgent environmental movement. You had books like Rachel Carson's Silent Spring back in '62 that just shocked the world into action. Then the first Earth Day in 1970 showed that millions of people really cared. And by the '90s, academics were saying, hey, we need to formally study how our culture is tangled up in this crisis. Okay, so how do you actually use this tool? Well, it pretty much boils down to asking a few key questions when you read a book or watch a film. Let's walk through them. All right, first up, we have to ask ourselves how nature is being shown. For centuries, it's often been treated as, well, little more than a stage. A stormy sea for a troubled hero, a peaceful garden for young lovers. But is that all it really is? And this shows that shift perfectly. On one side, you have the traditional reading. The stormy sea is just a mirror for the character's feelings. But an eco-critical reading, on the other side, asks us to see what's really there, a complex underwater ecosystem. It insists that nature isn't just a prop. It has its own story, its own starring role. And this leads us to the second, and maybe the most challenging question. Eco-criticism kind of forces us to wonder if our stories are a little too obsessed with, well, with us. The traditional view is anthropocentric, which is just a fancy word for human-centered. It's a worldview that puts humanity at the very top of a pyramid, with nature existing for our use. The ecocentric view completely flips this. It throws out the pyramid and gives us a web. It sees humanity as just one part of a vast, interconnected community, where every single being has value, period. And finally, this is where ecocriticism gets really tough. It doesn't just look at trees and animals. It looks at people, and it asks a critical question about justice. Because the reality is, pollution and environmental damage don't affect everyone equally, not even close. They almost always hit marginalized communities the hardest. So eco-criticism looks for the stories that are often ignored, the ones that reveal who has access to clean air and water, and whose land gets treated like a dumping ground. It's all about uncovering the hidden injustices written into our landscapes. Okay, so we have this powerful lens. But you might be wondering, why does analyzing old books and poems matter for the very real challenges we're facing today? Because those stories aren't just artifacts. They build the mental framework we live in. The way a 19th century novel portrayed the conquest of the wilderness, or how an old poem idealized a manicured countryside. Those ideas didn't just stay on the page. They shaped attitudes, policies, and the physical world we all see around us. This is the ultimate takeaway. Stories aren't passive mirrors, they are active forces. They can reinforce destructive ideas, sure, but they can also challenge them. They can build empathy, change minds, and help us imagine new, more sustainable ways of living on this planet. And that leaves us with a final, crucial question. If the stories of the past brought us to this moment of crisis, then what new narratives do we need to create for the future? What stories will help us not just to survive, but to build a healthier, more just relationship with our planet? That's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.